We are ready to go.
All right, welcome to the February 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Transportation Committee. My name is Jason Fromwitz and I am the chair of the committee. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Berth. The meeting is called to order at 7:01 p.m. As a reminder, New York State law requires all committee members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed when the time the meeting is called to order until the meeting is adjourned. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature in Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. We need a volunteer to take minutes for tonight. If you are able to take minutes, please speak now. Thank you, Miriam. We will now take attendance by roll call. Brendan will conduct the roll.
One question, who volunteered again?
It was me,
No, thank you, Miriam.
silently.
Okay, committee members, I will call your names. Your name is called, please stay present. I'll announce if there is quorum. Michael Cohen.
Present.
Pete Isman.
Present.
Maya Donahue.
Present.
Barack Friedman.
Present.
Jason Fromowitz.
Present.
Eric Goldberg. I don't see. Anna Picior, I also.
She told me she's running a couple minutes late.
Okay, duly noted. Marion Rowe.
Present.
Larry Shire.
Present.
Gabe Terzo.
Present.
Jerry Weinstein.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Brendan. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen for you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand. Seeing no objection, agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Moving on to the minutes. The minutes from the January 6th meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand. Already seeing no objections, the minutes from the January 6th meeting are adopted, and they will soon be available on the CV6 website. All right, let's set some ground rules. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members are here in person. If you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will identify you so you can speak. Committee members unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom and I will identify you so you can speak. All committee members, it is extremely important that one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching from home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us of any technical difficulties that you have or state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. All right, and tonight's agenda, we will start off with a report from Department of Transportation, giving it over to Colleen.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's Colleen Chattergoon from City Department of Transportation. I do have one update. I sent a letter to the district office informing them of our plans, working with Lyft on an upcoming electrification of one of the city bike stations in your district. And that location is on First Avenue and East 30th Street. What this is that Lyft is working with Con Ed to connect city bike stations to the electrical grid. This will bring power to the station and Lyft will temporarily remove the existing station, complete trench work, and restore the sidewalk and then reinstall the grid connected station in its previous footprint. So the station location will not change and the sidewalk work will take approximately 1 to 2 days. So Lyft is planning to make this change at the station that's on First Avenue and East 30th Street. I don't have the timeline of when this is going to happen, but we are working out the logistics with Lyft and I will keep the board updated. That's the only update that I have so far. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me.
Actually, just a quick question on that. Is that going to allow for the bikes to be charged on the dock as well, or is it just about operationally them being online?
I think it's going to allow them to be charged as well. Yeah.
Cool. Very good. Thank you.
This is a good location. It's for the NYU Langone Hospital. Will there be any change made to the number of stations that are there? The number of stops?
No, it'll remain as is. I mean, we're not planning to make any changes with the station.
Right.
hey, Colleen, Brock here. Just a few quick things. One, I just wanted to thank you for responding to our resolutions. I think that's really cool, and I think we all appreciate that. So that's one, is a thank you. Number two is the 59th Street Bridge. Now with congestion pricing, we don't have the congestion on Second Avenue and the gridlock. It's actually flowing pretty well now. So is there anything like holding up the pedestrianization of the south roadway of the 59th Street Bridge?
Actually, no, that's not holding anything up. We are still working out the logistics for that. And I will get back to the community board with the timeline. So no, that doesn't have an impact on it.
Is the construction still going on in the upper level? That was delaying the.
I believe there is construction going on, so we're trying to coordinate that work with the other, work that we have to do in that location. Yeah, but there is construction going on. Yes.
I'm sorry, Colleen, just a third thing. I'm sorry, Michael. Just real quickly, the 17th precinct identified the 5 most dangerous intersections in our district. If Jason's okay, maybe I could read them just so everybody's aware of what our most dangerous intersections are. It's 3rd Avenue and 37th Street, 1st Avenue and 52nd Street, 2nd Avenue and 46th Street, 3rd Avenue and 59th Street, 2nd Avenue and 34th Street. So I was just a question, Colleen, what should we do with this type of information? Would you like us to pass a resolution asking you to look at it? Should we just send you those intersections? What do you think we should do with this information?
I think it's always helpful if the board send us a resolution on record, asking the DOT, based on the information that you got from the precinct, if there are any plans to reevaluate those intersections to see what upcoming safety improvements that we can make. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks. That's really good. Thank you so much, Barb.
I wanted to ask about like the bike lanes. Like, is there any effort to improve the bike lanes or to raise up the bike lanes and make them harder for cars to intrude into them? Like more protected bike lanes and things like that?
So we're always looking at safety measures when it comes to our bike lanes. At the moment, I have to tell you, I don't know if there's any discussions about that. But, when it comes to the safety of all the users of the roadway, we try our best to implement strategically, the toolkits that we have, the tools that we have in our toolkit to ensure that, cyclists are protected, as well as, motorists, traveling, on our roadways. So I don't know if there are any plans to do that, but I can take that back and get back to the community board. It's something, that we probably wouldn't rule out, in the near future. So
Thank you. Hi, Colleen. I have a question about loading zone policy. Sorry, it's a little in the weeds, but I know the city is actively looking to expand the number of loading zones and is actively seeking requests for loading zones. We're trying to do a deep dive on loading zones, and one thing we're trying to find is there a published criteria for loading zone placement? And I guess more specifically, are there rules governing how close they can be to each other and any other sort of disqualifying criteria? Is that published somewhere we can find it?
there is information on our DOT's website about loading zones and what the criteria are. I can send that link to Brendan and he can share it with you. It depends. Are you inquiring about neighborhood loading zones or commercial loading zones, on-street parking?
Well,
they're two.
Sort of both. So we have two different streams that are kind of coming together on this question, but we are explicitly looking to see if they can be, how close they need to be to each other to disqualify placement of a new one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, we have commercial loading zones on multiple blocks citywide. Commercial parking is in effect during the day, and then after 7 p.m., depending on the location, it's parking open to residents. So, and then we do have the neighborhood loading zones that allow for, Amazon and FedEx to pull in if they have to make a delivery to, a particular building or residence. It all depends. I mean, what you're looking for, but there is information on our website that I can share with Brandon, and you can take a look at that and let me know what questions you have.
Okay, thank you.
Are you asking in regards to the reso we're looking at tonight?
Yes, and the fellow. Yes, yeah, that first.
So just as it pertains to the resolution tonight, I think there is a distinction between loading zones and no parking zones in front of residences, where loading zones would have the connotation where they're, correct me if I'm wrong, Colleen, but there's a allowed amount of time for parking in a loading zone, whereas no parking in front of the, which we generally would see as a no parking zone would be a shorter duration of regulations.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So they're slightly different.
Got
Hi, Colleen. I wanted to go back to the electrification of the bike dock that you were talking about. How is Con Ed also thinking about this as far as the larger electrical grid? Because I'm sure we've all noticed that our bills keep going up and there's only so much infrastructure. And I'm for the electrification of it, but how are they going to address that going forward?
So, I mean, that's a question, I would have to direct at Con Ed. If you can send me an email, Brendan can give you my email address, and I can find out from Con Ed. I can't answer that on behalf of the agency of Con Ed.
Larry.
Okay, this is an expansion of what Michael was asking about, and also fairly tangentially related to the 20th Street resolution we have today. Brendan, I had a couple of photographs I sent to you of the conditions of a bike lane blockage. Yeah, this is one of them. You can see this box truck is almost completely blocked the way of this parking protected bike lane, just adjacent to East 20th Street, adjacent to Peter Cooper Village. And show the other one looking in the other direction looking toward First Avenue, and then looking toward Avenue C, the East River. You have another truck. This is a bi-directional bike lane. It's fairly wide. These trucks get themselves wedged in there every night, and it makes it really unsafe and difficult to pass. So if DOT might work with the 13th precinct on this, I would appreciate it.
Sure, Larry. And the thing is too, Larry, a lot of this is enforcement issue. So the community board can also, let the precinct know and share the photos with them.
That's why I shared this with Brendan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Colleen. Moving on the agenda, we have more from the Department of Transportation and the MTA on enhanced bus priority service for 34th Street. Very excited to have this presentation and give you guys over the phone. Thank you.
Great. So thank you so much for having us this evening to give the presentation on the 34th Street Bus Enhancement Priority Project. We're joined with my colleagues from DOT, Rachel Eisenberg and Phil Bedell, and we're also joined with members from the New York City MTA. My colleague Rachel is going to give the presentation and along with MTA. So let's reserve, questions to the end. So thanks so much. Whenever you're ready, Rachel.
Thanks so much, Colleen. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. All right, is everyone seeing the presentation?
Yep.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. As Colleen said, my name is Rachel Eisenberg. I'm a project manager in DOT's Transit Development Unit, and today we're coming to talk to you all about 34th Street. This is an existing conditions presentation. And I'll be joined by Joe Chiramonte in this presentation as well. And I believe Mariah Richardson from MTA is also on the call with us. So let's get started. All right, so just to go over what we're going to be doing today, we'll start out with some background, move on to existing conditions, talk about some of the work that we've done to date. Then we'll go over our toolkit and we'll finish up with our next steps. So starting out with some background. So why are we looking at 34th Street? So first of all, our study area encompasses all of 34th Street from river to river, of course, CB6 on the eastern end of that. And 34th Street is, a major thoroughfare in Manhattan, critical connections to, numerous subway lines, PATH, Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, Amtrak, tons of local and express bus routes. Of course, congestion pricing recently launched, and 34th Street is located within the congestion relief zone, making it, even more of a focus, I think, right now. On 34th Street, we have the M34 and M34A SBS bus that runs along 34th, along with numerous express buses. Combined, they have a daily ridership of 28,000 passengers, but this is matched with pretty slow bus speeds of an average of 4.6 miles per hour in the weekday. This is obviously also an important through truck route connecting and important for cars connecting the two tunnels, and numerous pedestrians who traverse the corridor daily. The 34th Street was identified as a potential future project in the most recent update to the New York City Streets Plan, which is New York's 5-year transportation master plan. And it was also identified in the 2024 Connecting to the Core report, which identified potential projects within the central business district, which had the potential for making sustainable travel easier, safer, and more reliable. So now I'm going to move on to some of our existing conditions. So as many of you probably know, there is existing bus priority on 34th Street. So curbside bus lanes were first introduced in 2008 when M34 and M34A Select Bus Service launched in partnership with MTA in November of 2011. Many of those curbside bus lanes were upgraded to offset bus lanes. You can see here kind of that mix. In addition, 11 bus bulbs were added for faster boarding and improved pedestrian experience, with additional work still underway on some of those today. And so just going over quickly the curbside and offset bus lanes. So in CB6 in particular, we have quite the mix. In the example that is just shown here, all the way on the eastern end, along the south curb, we have curbside bus lanes, which are in effect only Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So kind of our, peak weekday periods. And on the north side of the street, we have offset bus lanes, which are in effect 24/7. This kind of varies throughout the corridor, just because of, geometry constraints and various loading needs. Because there's a mismatch, sometimes this can cause confusion for drivers and can cause some, merging issues as the travel lanes drop from, 2 to 1, especially where we have those curbside lanes. I'll also note that where we have an offset lane, so, we have the parking lane or other loading space of some sort, then the bus lane, and then the travel lane. The bus still, of course, pulls to the curb for bus stops if there is not a bus bulb or curb extension which comes out to meet it. So regardless, there is accessible boarding. And now I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk about bus speeds.
Okay, everybody can hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. So I am Joe Sharmonti. I'm with New York City Transit in the bus service planning group. And I'll just briefly go over some bus operations and bus speeds currently on 34th Street. So the bus speeds did improve after the launch of SBS, which was mentioned before, though the 34 and the 34A SBS are still one of the slowest bus routes in New York City, averaging just 5 miles per hour during the weekday peaks. The current bus lane design is not working well, particularly where the lanes are curbside. We see bus speeds as low as 3 miles per hour, and that would be those red lines on the map there. On an average weekday, roadway congestion causes over 750 hours of passenger delay on the M34, 34A routes. And to make a comparison, on weekdays, the average bus peak speeds on the 14th Street busway are actually 15% faster than what we see on 34th Street. So that's just a brief overview of 34th Street bus speeds.
Thanks so much, Joe. So move on to talking about safety. So 34th Street is a Vision Zero priority corridor. And, throughout its entire length from the Hudson to the East River, there are 4 Vision Zero priority intersections, one of those being in CB6 at the FDR Drive. It's a busy corridor with thousands of motor vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists at each intersection. And over the 4-year period between 2019 and 2023, there were over 450 individuals injured in crashes on 34th Street. While this represents a decrease of 16% over the previous 4-year period from 2015 to 2019, it's still over 7 injuries a month. So it's still something that we want to, decrease. We want to get that obviously down to 0. So moving on to our visions and challenges. So, what are we looking to do in a bus priority enhancement project on 34th Street? We want to make bus service faster and more reliable. We want to improve the pedestrian experience, increase safety, and, make sure that there's access to businesses. Our challenges include vehicle access needs, the tunnels at either end of the corridor, and high demand from all travel modes. So now I'm going to go over some of the work that we've done to date. So in September and October of last year, we administered pedestrian intercept surveys along 34th Street. Our street ambassadors spoke to over 350 people and administered 200 on-street surveys. People commented on slow bus speeds and blocked bus lanes, as well as construction in the area. 39% of people took transit to 34th Street, and 71% reported walking in our survey. Just to note, people were allowed to choose multiple. We know New York, especially in the Manhattan core, very multimodal city and area. So we also did a merchant survey a little later in the fall in November of 2024. And our street ambassadors went out and visited every business on 34th Street between 9th Avenue and 2nd Avenue. Over 100 businesses participated in this survey, where we asked about delivery schedules, challenges, and needs for things like loading. Businesses reported access to loading docks in some cases, while others relied on side street parking, and many reported hand carts for final delivery. In general, businesses noted a need for additional loading space on and around the corridor. So now I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about our toolkit. So, of course, there is existing bus priority on 34th Street. So much of our toolkit can be seen on the roadway today. So, of course, the curbside and offset bus lanes that we talked about earlier. Bus bulbs, again, that's just like a sidewalk extension that helps meet the sidewalk to where the bus is traveling in its offset lane. Provides a little more pedestrian space and easier boarding experience. Bus shelters, benches and leaning bars, and parking meters. Of course, we have other aspects of our toolkit which aren't currently in use on 34th Street. So we have a busway or truck and transit priority street, similar to 14th Street, in Manhattan, as Joe mentioned earlier. Physical protection for bus lanes, dedicated bus signals, like a bus queue jump signal that allows the bus to kind of get a head start before other traffic starts going, and center running bus lanes. Our toolkit also encompasses pedestrian safety and curb management elements. So for pedestrian safety, we have, either concrete or painted pedestrian islands and curb extensions that, we implement throughout the city. And for curb management, there's truck loading zones and short-term parking tools that we can use to help encourage turnover space along the curb. So now moving on to our next step. So right now, CB6, you guys are our final stop for discussing existing conditions along 34th Street. We're hoping that any feedback you have for, what you'd be interested in seeing on 34th Street, maybe particular intersections that are problematic that you all have noticed that you can bring up today. In general, we're hoping your feedback will help shape a draft proposal. At the same time, this winter, we're continuing site visits and data collection. Later in the winter or early spring, we'll hope to continue public outreach and conduct traffic analysis and develop and share a draft plan, again, using that feedback and traffic analysis. In the spring, we hope to share a refined plan with a goal of implementation in summer of 2025. And that's all I have for you all today. So if anyone has any questions, comments, please feel free to share.
I'm confident we have all the above. I will start us off with one. In terms of the feedback that you're looking for, I'm assuming that would be preferred in the form of ultimately in a resolution, if possible. Is that correct?
I mean, that would be great, but also happy to have a discussion and answer questions today.
Yep, that's great. Okay, thank you very much. Michael, go ahead.
What about like the curbside bus lanes? I remember you were saying something about like having protected bus lanes. I was wondering, there doesn't seem to be a lot of room at the curb on 34th Street. Some of the streets of the bus lane, so it'd be hard to make it an offset bus lane. What if you could make the curbside bus lane all day and put protected barriers on it?
Yeah, I'll definitely, we'll note that down. Thank you so much for that feedback. I'll note that sometimes protecting curbside bus lanes can be difficult because it does mean that curb access is permanently, we permanently deter access to the curb. But, perhaps there are blocks along 34th Street where that could, be a solution.
Larry.
Three quick things. First, I suggest that you add to your presentation the existence of a New York City Department of Transportation ferry landing at 34th Street and the East River, and a New York Waterway ferry terminal at West 38th Street, bookending the use of the busway. I used it earlier today from 34th Street ferry landing. It's very useful. The second thing is appreciate that you're focusing on the center running, but there's something that's been somewhat neglected, and that is the idea of maybe relocating some of the bus stops, not a universal distance from each other, but with the aim, the measure of success being to save safe steps for your passengers, for your bus passengers, so that when they alight from the bus, they can get to their transfer as easily as possible. There's a perfect example of how this works well at 34th Street and 7th Avenue, where the bus stop is on the near corner, which isn't what you normally like to do. You like to have a right turn lane, but it's right in front of the entrance to Long Island Railroad, where you have a high amount of transfer volume. And the reason you have a high amount of transfer volume is because you put the bus stop in the right place. So at Lexington Avenue, for example, there used to be a bus stop right there. Now you have to walk along to Park Avenue or 3rd Avenue to transfer. And those are my thoughts.
Thanks so much.
Right. Hey, just a couple quick things. Maybe it'd be helpful for you to know that CB6 passed a resolution for 34th Street busway. 42 in favor, 1 opposed, and that was in June. So, I think the board is overall very in favor of a busway. I saw Keith Powers posted on social media that he was in favor of a busway. So I think there is concern that there's going to be half measures on 34th Street, and it's not going to really solve this problem of slow buses. And then I'll just add that there's at least 18 bus routes that use 34th Street. And I won't read them all, but it's like QM1, QM2, QM3, QM4, on and on and on, in addition to the ones you mentioned. So my last comment would be anything you could do about electrification of buses that makes the livability of the area much better. Thank you.
And the resolution's on our screen right now, so you can see it.
Yes, thank you so much for that feedback. And yes, we're definitely well aware of the resolution. As I said, this is just an existing conditions presentation, so hopefully we'll be able to incorporate this feedback and obviously the support from CB6 for a busway on 34th Street into our future plan.
As you've been having conversations about this, I don't know if you've only come to the community boards, but have you heard from any of the sort of major establishments along the route? I'm thinking specifically Madison Square Garden about their support for or concerns about a busway?
So it's Colleen. We have invited all of the stakeholders to the community board meeting. We've created a meeting flyer. We've invited, again, Madison Square Garden, all of the bids, NYU, Mount Sinai, and so forth. But we have not heard back any feedback yet from, some of the major stakeholders who we already presented in CB4 and CB5 district. Just so you know.
Thank you.
Eric, just a quick question. You mentioned that this busway would increase the speed by about 15%. Are there any other measures you can take to improve on the 15%?
Well, yeah, the 15% was the comparison to 14th Street. So
Right.
we would hope to see that much. But I think that some of the design initiatives that DOT is putting in could certainly make us achieve that. Especially exclusive bus lanes, busway, things like that really are probably the best way to get the speeds increased and sustained.
So I guess my question is, what's on the table beyond 15%? Because I don't know, sounds like it saves you a couple minutes, which you don't want to discount, but what can make it better? That we don't do because we're unsure of business feedback or other people's problems with it. How do you make it faster?
Well, I think that DOT is doing a number of things. On the MTA side, I mean, hopefully when we're fully using Omni, that will increase speeds even more. We've yet to see, I think, the full impact of congestion pricing. That's something we're certainly monitoring as well. But I think the biggest changes will come from actual physical design changes to 34th Street, as well as enforcement of the bus lanes. And if a busway is, which is sort of like on the, I don't want to call it the extreme end, but it's, on the sort of the other end of DOT's toolkit of things that it can be done, that's really where we find the most benefit. So we're certainly looking forward to hopefully that being implemented.
I just want to emphasize the congestion pricing impact when we're looking at 15% was the improvement that was seen on 14th Street when the busway was implemented on 14th Street. That was before congestion pricing and doesn't factor in congestion pricing. So congestion pricing could make a big difference, particularly as it pertains to gridlock on the north-south avenues. That could help us see a much bigger increase potentially. Matt?
I have two questions. One for the bus bulbs. I like them as a pedestrian, like trying to enter onto the bus, but I also find it helpful and improve bus times for the bus re-entering traffic. But if we're going to make it a busway, how is the landscape going to change? Like, are they just going to be left there and you have kind of empty space that could be sidewalk used? Or what you thought about that?
I think so. Again, a busway is one of the tools in our toolkit that we're looking at. I think there are, as you mentioned, always benefits to the bus being able to stay in line as like a moving lane. We know that 34th Street is a heavily commercial corridor. There are, numerous businesses with numerous, delivery needs. And so much like 14th Street, where every single block, except for, right at Union Square, can be accessed by personal vehicles. It's likely our busway tool really is prioritizing the bus, but still does allow, some amount of vehicle access. So we know that the vast majority of blocks, still do need those access, whether trucks or personal vehicle access needs. And so to some extent, those will still remain. I think the bus bulbs, of course, provide more space on the sidewalk. They give us more room to have shelters, furnishings like benches, wayfinding, everything like that. So regardless of the improvements that we make as a part of this project, those bus bulbs and all of the improvements that they've made will certainly not go to waste. They'll continue to be used as the bus stops and as space for bus passengers and pedestrians along 34th Street.
Great, and that kind of goes to my other question for the commercial uses of 34th Street. You mentioned in one of the challenges, the book ending with the tunnels. Is there a lot of traffic between, or like what kind of traffic is going from New Jersey out to Queens and like skipping Manhattan effectively?
Yeah, so right now we're still in the process of studying our traffic analysis. There are time limits on when large trucks can use 34th Street as a through route. So that is, currently a limiting factor for those types of vehicles. As we continue to study it and as we come back with like a full proposal or a draft proposal, we'll certainly look into that and hopefully we'll be able to get back to you in a satisfying capacity.
Thanks.
I'll also mention, as we are analyzing the effects of the congestion relief zone, we'll be incorporating that into our traffic models as well.
Michael, go ahead.
I want to know when the busway is implemented, is there any plan to create a pedestrian plaza or more room for bikes on the street as well?
So as we said, this is just the existing condition so far. right now, we don't have, we're not intending to incorporate bike lane improvements as a part of this project. Are there particular blocks that, you would be interested in seeing increased pedestrianization or increased pedestrian improvements? And, obviously that goes to anybody who's in this meeting. Because as we know, all bus riders are also pedestrians, so very important to us.
I had a comment on that specifically, but if you had something to follow up on that.
Diagonally, as Eric mentioned, these dangerous areas that are identified, anyone that cycles along 34th will tell you you are a nihilist, include myself. So I do think the point is well taken for any major thoroughfare to investigate any ways to make things safer for riders who are also pedestrians. Yeah.
As it pertains to pedestrians, Barack and I had a meeting with our neighbor community boards across town. They are concerned about increasing access to wider sidewalks on the corridor as part of this project. They'd like to see wider sidewalks to be incorporated in this project. So as we're looking at recommendations, if we have a take on that as well, that would be helpful. There is a goal, there's a letter that is proposed that all 3 community boards sign on to. As a part of that draft letter, we've included the ask to widen sidewalks. So if that's something we would like to see as well, that would be helpful so that we can jointly sign on to that letter. Second, as it pertains to biking on 34th Street, as 14th Street isn't, I think technically, well, I'm gonna comment with the busway on 14th Street. I'm not clear I don't think bikes are technically supposed to utilize 14th Street.
You can.
Can you
Yeah,
officially?
we're one of the, just like pedestrians, we're exempted. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was
It
just,
isn't clear though.
Yeah, but they also
I can understand
created
where the
parallel
confusion
routes
comes
on
from.
12th and 13th Streets.
well, I was just gonna say that there's no bike lane on 14th Street. I've biked across 14th Street a number of times. It's quite pleasant, despite the lack of bike lanes. Yes, and as Larry pointed out, there were very nice protected bike lanes installed across town on 12th and 13th Street, just south of the busway. So if you're not, those are also very good in my opinion. But I do think 34th Street potentially as a dedicated busway would also be served as well as a bike, either an official or non-official bike route, even without the designation of specifically a bike lane.
Real quick, regarding ridership numbers, is that the number of bodies on the bus or the number of fares? Because there is a divergence, right, between the two. I'm just curious which the published ridership numbers are.
I can answer this.
Oh,
So,
thank you, Maureen.
got it. Let me turn my camera on. Yes, so the ridership figures that are provided here account for both paid and unpaid fares. So we are able to use the APC technology, the automated passenger count technologies on the buses to count the number of people who are on regardless of if they pay.
Okay, and I added some thoughts as well. So I think 14th Street has been a tremendous success in my view. The 14th Street busway, the buses move at a comparable speed to the L train. In fact, in many cases myself, when I'm approaching 14th Street and I'm trying to go across town, if I see the bus coming, it makes much more sense for me to hop on the bus than it does to go down the stairs and potentially wait longer for the subway. I think it's a resounding success. It has really made 14th Street much easier to get around. Personally, I was strongly in favor of the resolution we passed in support of the busway for 34th Street. I would love to see nothing short of the same treatment on 14th Street. While I very much appreciate DOT coming to us and presenting all the options available to us on 34th Street, I think it would be a missed opportunity for anything other than the implementation of a full dedicated busway on the corridor. And I know we passed a resolution effectively saying that, but I do think it may be helpful for us to pass a resolution sort of reinforcing that, that we've looked at the options from DOT, and we continue to support a full dedicated busway. I'm going to go to a couple, we had a hand raised from Kathleen. You will have the floor.
Yeah, I was wondering, for the stats on PED struck, do they break down PED struck by vehicle, by bike, and by e-bike? Hello?
Sorry. I believe that the data is broken down. The data is certainly broken down by the mode involved. I am not sure off the top of my head if that is differentiated between e-bikes and standard bikes.
And then my
yeah, and
sorry,
all of that data is publicly available as well.
And my second question to that is, moving even further past just bringing the bus stops out to keep the buses running in a straight line, to be looking at the breakdown of those stats, to be moving forward, and how do we develop bike safety and people on foot getting on and off of the buses, and tourists along 34th Street. So that's why I'm asking about the breakdown on those stats.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for your comment.
All right, Nancy, you have the floor. You gotta make sure you unmute yourself. You should be able to speak.
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
Go ahead, yeah.
Nancy Sharon, and I live in community or council district or community board 6 district. I live on 36th and Lexington Avenue. So I do take that 34th Street bus very often. And I also walk across 34th Street as a pedestrian. I just want to put in a note of caution that there are many of the smaller streets surrounding 34th Street are not through streets. So you could get cars very tangled up. If you don't take a very careful look at the traffic patterns, cars could get very tangled up going round and round, trying to get through on 33rd Street, for example, which is barricaded at the entrance to the Park Avenue Tunnel. So cars cannot go through from east to west on 33rd Street. And there are other streets like that cannot, where there's no through traffic. There's NYU Langone blocks at First Avenue with a huge several blocks where you cannot go through to the service road for the FDR Drive, for example. Also, 34th Street is not like 14th Street in that it connects the Midtown Tunnel to the Lincoln Tunnel. So you really do have some through traffic going river to river on 34th Street in cars. And also, I'm sure in other ways, maybe even bicycles, but mostly cars really do have to go across from river to river on 34th Street. So I personally oppose turning that into a busway that does not allow car traffic on the street. I think we have to kind of share 34th Street with the cars so that cars can more easily get, if they need to, from the Midtown Tunnel to the Lincoln Tunnel. I know everybody hated when Robert Moses tried to make a throughway there, and he did it a little bit, and it's really needed there. I've also noted that most of the traffic congestion is on the west side, west of Fifth Avenue. So take a closer look at the blocks there. And a lot of the backups on the bus are due to cars blocking the box at the intersection. So that if you can solve blocking the box, especially on the west side, but also sometimes on the east side during peak traffic hours. If you can solve the blocking the box on that street, I think the buses will automatically move much faster.
Thank you, Nancy. Larry, go ahead.
Just following up on the river to river vehicular traffic. While it's theoretically possible to go from tunnel to tunnel on 34th Street, it's not the most direct route. And so I'm not quite sure that creating a busway here is going to greatly impact that.
I also agree that it's not behavior we want to encourage. People traveling through Midtown Manhattan to get to Queens. I think that's an inefficient route and has a huge amount of negative externalities. Go ahead, Mike.
Regarding the comment, the previous comment from the public, I wanted to know, like, would it be possible to have cameras for blocking the box? There's some way of enforcing that to make sure the intersection isn't blocked.
I'm not sure if our current cameras have the capabilities of enforcing box blocking, though that's something we can look into. Hopefully with a project like this, we will be taking a look at all of the signal timing along 34th Street and actually in the surrounding area. So hopefully making improvements so that traffic flows better to prevent that box blocking in the first place.
And I would also hope that congestion pricing has a significant impact on reducing boxing and gridlock. Right.
Just on 14th Street, before that came in, there were massive concerns about the side streets and that there would be huge traffics and there was a lawsuit and, it was very, controversial at the time, but then when it actually went into effect, that never happened because, now if the bus moves, there's a huge amount of mode shift from cars to buses with people, now taking a bus that actually works. So just to say that was the exact concern on 14th Street and it never happened.
All right. So we have, some Q&A here. Okay, there's a question here. Does the fact that 34th Street is a truck route impact roadway design?
Yeah, so when we have truck routes, when we have a designated truck route, our design and our geometry must account for the turning radiuses of those larger vehicles as well as the potential access needs. So designated truck routes do have an impact on our roadway design.
And I'll just read this. This is coming from Deborah in the Q&A. Why would we want to encourage through traffic when our neighborhood is already burdened by through traffic? Another problem is poor traffic enforcement, which means a block boxing will continue to be a problem. The through drivers go through red lights and block boxes because they don't live or walk around here. Thank you for the comment. Okay, so as mentioned before, we have an existing resolution on the table supporting a busway. We could do nothing because we have that resolution already on the table. I do think there would be benefits to us having a new resolution, again, discussing this presentation and reinforce, if so chosen by the committee, if we want to reinforce our position about the support of a busway. I think there'd be some value to that. It would also enable us to sign on to it would be good to have another resolution to enable us to sign on to the letter from our neighboring community boards, specifically with an addition of asking for sidewalk widening, because that was not part of our previous resolution, and there's a desire for that to be included in the letter. Does anyone have any thoughts around the resolution and or possible motions?
I would be supportive of doing a new resolution. I think after the presentation, we learned a lot and it doesn't sound like the busway is a given. So I think if we specifically vocalize how we saw the presentation, this is what we like, this is our comments on the throughway stuff, it'd be important to vocalize it with specificity.
Any other thoughts?
I mean, I guess moderate concerns about redundancy. I think that it's a tool we already have now in our toolbox, and we are asking for sort of the maximum on 34th Street with what we have with respect to the street, not the sidewalk, but there, you know, I guess there's a question of like, what more added value is there from an additional?
I think I share the concern. I think that the added value is just that, we've looked at that there are other options on the table, and despite now having seen those other options, we still want the busway, potentially. Correct.
Hey, I share your concern. I think the value is this letter that says CV4, CV5, CV6, expands the length of 34th Street, is in favor of 34th Street busway and sidewalk. I think it just sends a loud message. I think that's advantage, but I share your concern and maybe slight ambivalence, because we already have a resolution. So I take your point.
I'm just picturing a full board meeting that goes into a lot of questions about why we need this.
Or why it's different from the
Yeah.
last one. It seems repetitive to me.
And
have they already passed resolutions, the other two community boards?
they had not, Brock, you just mentioned one of them, or was that just transportation?
We would all be doing it the next go round. So nobody's done it yet.
And it would be one resolution signed by all three community boards?
The way we've done this, because we just did this for the 42nd Street as well, everyone has different processes, but effectively, we would need to pass a resolution to be able to sign on to a letter that, as long as the letter's in the spirit of the resolution. Some of the other boards are just able to vote on the letter specifically. Some of them don't need a resolution at all. But for our purposes, we would need a letter that aligns with, we would need a resolution that aligns with the letter. Sandy, I think there's a question, I have a question for you. Sorry, let me put you on the spot. Do we have the option of, so the letter that is asked to be signed is, the main thing missing from that letter is the sidewalk widening. Could we pass a resolution just on sidewalk?
And my question is, do we need sidewalk widening in CV6, or is that more 4 and 5?
So I also wasn't sure if there was really a huge need for sidewalk widening myself. And I raised the question.
It could be written that way, that it's as required.
Yeah, well, the response I got from the group was that feeling was if space was being rethought on 34th Street, that it would be a preferable use of the space to make more access to pedestrians.
I think that between First and FDR, there's hardly any, there's certain parts of the street that it does not make sense. So maybe it's just terminology that describes a request to look at sidewalk widening where there's, the DOT has all the stats. They could definitely follow that. B does have her
Yes.
hand raised.
Thank you. Yeah, B, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I was going to comment on the need for another resolution. I think I want us to acknowledge the presentation that was made and the feedback, and talk about that this reaffirms our initial position, and look at any other thing that we want to add. I believe in repetition. If you really want to support something, you do it 3 times. And I actually think this would be very helpful to do.
This would only be the second, so we'd have to do it one more time.
Well, there may be factors coming up. We don't know.
Very good.
I want to add something that came up right in the very beginning when this current busway or bus lane was contemplated. It was also proposed. I know I myself proposed center running at that time. The pushback was about the geometry, which was uneven from place to place along the corridor, which is reflected right now in where the bus lane is currently located. I think it's significant to have the ask for the wider sidewalks, because it's going to be expensive to move drains and move curbs in order to accomplish that, which was the primary reason why the DOT had pushed back initially at doing a substantial project, and now they'll be facing those costs. So acknowledging that this could be a heavy lift, it might be a reason to have a resolution that specifically mentions that.
Yeah, and also worth noting that expanded sidewalks don't necessarily have to be
where it's appropriate and useful. We would support the other two boards in what they're asking for, even if we don't get much of it here.
Yeah, I just want to point out, like temporary materials, I think would fall within that theme. So like where we have the gray paint effectively and like bollards, I think that's in the same spirit of extended sidewalks. Okay, so do we want to does anybody want to make a motion? And then granted, we can pass a resolution tonight, but it might be good to have if somebody wants to make a motion to do a resolution or not, or we could, if not, we can move on.
I would like to make a motion to to write a resolution that captures the new information from the MTA given here tonight, and that aligns us with the other neighboring community boards on this issue and allows us to sign their letter.
Second that and volunteer to write that resolution.
Can I more specifically ask that we specifically saying that we are reinforcing our requests to implement a full busway and to not stop short on other alternative measures?
Yes, that was the spirit of my motion.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, do you want to take an informal vote on that, of just supporting that in general?
You don't necessarily need to take an informal vote, just write the resolution and then have it be presented to committee next month.
Okay, then we will do that.
Unless you want to get a sense of the committee and see if it's
well, yeah, I think I guess we don't need to vote. Does anybody object to this? Us writing the resolution, just be useful to have feedback. I think we're for the most part aligned. Okay. All right, we will discuss again next month with a written resolution. Thank you very much to the members of the public for their feedback, as well as to DOT for the presentation and continuing to work on this. We're excited to see it come together. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, moving on the agenda, we have discussion of the intersection of 20th Street and Avenue C and East 18th Street and Avenue C. There was a resolution that was circulated, I believe last month and this month. We didn't vote on it last month because we hadn't shared it with enough time for the bylaws. This is in a similar spirit to the resolution we passed last month on asking DOT to study these intersections and potentially make some improvements because of some untraditional signage and design.
Actually, isn't the 25th Street item before this on the agenda, or?
You're correct. Thank you, Brendan. Okay, I'll come back to that. Remember what I said. So I don't have to repeat myself. All right, let's talk about 25th Street, between First and FDR Service Way. Okay, so in full board, last month we had a public speaker who raised concern about this.
Is here.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming and for raising the concern. This has come up to the board a number of times. I don't know if we've discussed it as a committee recently, but I think it's been discussed as a committee in the past. But yeah, there's definitely a fairly wide amount of concern. Do you want to sort of like reintroduce what the problem is? I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize. But if you would like to talk to like what your observations are there, and yeah,
Shall we invite him to come up to the desk here?
So I officially submitted the testimony last session at the full board meeting, so I would just also want to acknowledge that. Kind of like my formal statement is there. Essentially, are you all familiar with the intersection for the most part?
Brandon, can you put the Google map up there just so
Yes.
people can see what he's talking about?
So the primary concerns I had is that a lot of times, cars that are, coming off the FDR, they're turning right here onto that street and they don't see that there's a stop sign. Usually also they're coming at, I would say like anywhere from like 20 to 30 miles per hour. So sometimes the speed is actually, a little bit increased as they're coming off the freeway and they don't see that stop sign.
It's a blind curve.
Yeah, exactly. And the other concern that I have is that there are two schools right there, the British American School and the UN school. You can see the UN school there. So during the day, and also particularly now in the evenings, there's a lot of student activity like before or after school. So there's a lot of students that are also crossing that street. And my recommendation initially was just to have some sort of flashing signal or something that just so people could see the stop sign better.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah, thank you.
So a couple things worth pointing out as well. This cross bridge overpass is the word I was looking for, is to be replaced as a part of the,
That's exciting.
what's it called? The project?
ESCR?
Spark, thank you. Yes, different, the acronyms. I got ESCR down pretty well now. Spark, yeah, I gotta start to remember. Yeah, so it's worth noting that that is planned in the area. I also just want to comment, I've taken a car occasionally, down this, through this exit, and you really blind, like it, I don't think it's a fairly poorly designed exit and sort of passway onto the roadway.
It's a 90-degree turn.
Yeah, you don't really see it as you're exiting the highway. So you're sort of like exiting the highway and then it's like you have to like immediately veer to the right. So it's just it's
Totally
poor,
wrong.
very poor sight lines. And it's a bit confusing because you can go straight, but you can cross. It's really just, yeah.
And you have no idea what you're coming up on.
Yeah.
You're not able to anticipate it.
Particularly if you're unfamiliar with the area. So yeah, so I want to throw out an idea that I had for this intersection, or this area, which was, reversing. So right now it's a two-lane road. My understanding is there's some history here that it didn't always used to be a two-lane road, or two-way road. It used to be, only, going westbound, and it was added, the second lane was added to allow for the VA hospital to have access to their loading dock. Oh yeah, Brendan, that'd be useful if you can
Yeah.
have that.
Do you know how far back it was? But even in 2013, it is two-way.
Okay, maybe, I thought it was more recent, but maybe, I mean, obviously not. Okay, I found something on in the board resolutions around this.
Maybe if I found something on GIS from like the 70s or something.
Also Astor-Levy Place used to be an open street, it's not closed.
Okay, I think that was why, thank you. I think Asher Levy Place being closed made it a need for access to that was used for access to the loading zone for the hospital. And when that closed down, they made this a two-way street.
And then they built a flood wall there.
Yes, yes, now there's the flood wall there. But one of the ideas I had for the space, is reversing the direction of traffic. So right now it's two ways. Could we potentially, make it back to a one-way street, and instead of the traffic traveling from exiting off the highway onto this road, having it only going eastbound? So then this way you would remove all the traffic that's like quickly exiting the FDR. That traffic would have to go forward towards Avenue C and 23rd Street. And effectively you'd eliminate that fast moving traffic right up the highway from the street. It would basically, I would imagine the street would see very little traffic otherwise, because it would sort of dead end at the entrance of the highway and require people to like loop back effectively onto 23rd Street. I'm interested in what folks think about that. Eric.
So two things for the context as well, which I think is great, is first that this is a super dangerous street. I live at Waterside and I cross this road all the time, and my kids do as well, and I'm nervous for them every day. just three ideas is in order of most complex to the easiest. The most complex is, and we've, I think, shared it a few times, is as Spark is developed, why this entire road is not pedestrianized to connect to Astor Levy and really create a much broader open space for the community, I think would be like serve the community interest in open space the most, because I just don't understand why there's any need for traffic on this road. You can get into the VA from 23rd Street. Like the entrance, they opened up a new entrance to that side too, to the loading dock, which is relatively new, so you could enter from the other side. And when they develop Spark, the loading would be on, I don't know if it's 26th or 27th. So best for the community is close it off. I'd say your idea is second, which is just making it go westbound, because it's the people coming off the FDR that's really treacherous. And as an immediate next step, which people at Waterside have been asking for a long time, is have some measure or some traffic calming measures for the cars coming off the FDR. Ironically, they put speed bumps further down on 25th Street, and there is no speed bump coming off the FDR. And the second piece is the crosswalk is on the most easterly part of the park. At least make their crosswalk on as further down the street as possible to get more cars off the road and off the FDR and give them more of a sight line before the stop comes. So I just think at minimum, put some traffic calming measures and push that crosswalk further down the road. But that's the easiest, and I would agree with all of them that get it better.
Michael.
Actually, I feel like he had a point there about the traffic calming on the road, and I think it's also something to consider about the two-way street. I mean, when I was on 25th Street and living in the dorm there, I noticed that the cars came off the roadway so fast. And I feel what would be great is to have some sort of traffic calming measure. And I wanted to know about the loading zone. Is it still active? I've noticed they built a big wall at the VA hospital.
It's a great question. I would assume yes, but I don't know. Eric, you mentioned, go ahead.
And I was thinking two things just to that is the loading zone is still active, but again, now there's an entry point from the other side. And the last part, and then you go is 4 to 5 cars below that stop sign by it, just as a side note. Go ahead.
The one comment I wanted to make on the two-way traffic, proposal is that this route is also used by a lot of southbound EMTs that are going to the hospital, paramedics. And so my concern would be that if we made this street only westbound, that they would then be forced to go straight and there's not enough room to maneuver southbound if you continue to go straight on to 23rd Street, and that backs up really quickly with cars. And so my concern is that we would then have a backup onto FDR with paramedics trying to get through there to the hospital.
Is there not a more northern exit that's closer? No.
But there easily could be, by the way, for emergency vehicles.
Where?
Back up there.
Where? There's nothing south of 30th Street.
There's a service road on that traces all along the FDR there.
So you're saying that an exit could be, some sort of emergency exit could be.
I don't know if you went up, if that really was a concern, or make it just for emergency.
On the FDR, Brendan, I think. If you go north on the FDR.
Also, I see B raising her hand. The flag now.
You'd be able to recognize you in 1 second. So yeah, is that, Eric, is that what you're suggesting?
Go up a little more.
Go a little more north on the FDR?
Yeah.
That area?
Yeah, if you keep going, you'll see, I mean, right behind that wall, it's all a service road that connects the hospital.
Yeah, but you can't get to it. It's different elevation.
I guess it could be broken
So
out.
it's a different elevation.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if it's a concern for the emergency vehicles, let them tell us that, but, I mean.
There's no place to go west before 34th Street.
Let's go to B, but yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
So this area has been a problem for a while. I'm listening to each one of you with your ideas. It's a lot of complexity. I'm not too sure that the Community Board of Transportation ever asked for studies of alternatives. So I think it is something really important to do and have basically the looking at the alternatives and what's doable. But also in listening to it, a lot of them are long-term. So my comment is what can be done in the immediate future that at least lessens what we're dealing with it. Is it the flashing light or whatever? And then we should really have a look at a number of alternatives that can be implemented over a period of time.
Thanks, B. Patrick.
Quick follow-up. Are studies retrospective that it would also include if we called back at the data and cameras, accidents and people going through stop signs to substantiate what our shared belief is?
Michael.
Flashing light, like, what does that look like? Would it be like one of those? I mean, would it be like one of the warning lights that like flash from one light to the other, like left and right, or would it be something else, like?
Or it would be a stop sign flashing light.
I was thinking, so the reason that I was also thinking that flashing light would be a potentially good solution is to the previous comment that would be simple to implement. It seems like realistic in the short term. And also, as we know, there's a lot of planned changes for this area. So it seems like also a solution that could be like retracted easily with minimal consequences versus something that may complicate further things that we're not sure what's gonna happen in the future. I know around like Peter Cooper Village in Storytown, they have like solar, like powered stop signs where it's just the perimeter of the octagon flashes. So something like that, I feel like could be implemented fairly easily, in addition to, you know, the flashing stop sign.
All right, federal law says that if you maintain the stop sign, maybe we could also add the red flasher. You can also put reflective material on the vertical member that holds up the stop sign, so you can have additional visibility.
There.
I'm just gonna reiterate one more time, because I cross it every day. That crosswalk has to move. It is, the crosswalk is too close to the exit. That is the one thing, is that they don't see the pedestrians and they don't stop. If you put a flash or anything, they're still blown by the time they realize there's people walking.
So Eric, you move it closer to the VA?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that exact point, reiterate that it's just too close to a blind curve off a highway, and there's nothing that's gonna stop a speeding car going 45 miles an hour off the FDR. And there'd be a flashing light or whatever, so I feel like we should ask write a resolution, ask the DOT to study the area. But in my heart of hearts, I have concern.
Right.
Concern is just.
Give long and short term proposals.
Yeah.
We could also do a service request in the short term for any sort of immediate improvements around I don't think we should wait for a resolution to get a light, to ask the DOT to potentially install a light.
Flashing stop.
Brendan, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, whether it be, and we can discuss solutions, whether it be like flashing stoplight or signage, because like looking on Google Maps, I also noticed that signage telling you to slow down isn't until right before you turn on 25th Street, which is not a lot, at least to me, doesn't seem like a lot of warning.
Can we go back to the crosswalk? A concern I have with moving the crosswalk is, not that I'm not opposed to it at all, but just a concern that I have is, you sort of, if you move that north.
Right at the end of the.
There's a desire line there that it aligns to. So I think I'd be concerned with moving the crosswalk further north, that people are gonna cross as they get off the bridge anyway.
I'm only saying, like, even if it's 15 feet to like the other side, where deeper into the park, just anything gives you more time.
No, I agree with you, and I see that.
I get it.
But I just
I'm not
don't
saying
know.
People are gonna jaywalk.
Right.
No matter what, yes, and that's why there should be a speed bump or traffic calming.
Well, but I wonder if that would be worse, if we move the crosswalk further away and people don't make the walk to the crosswalk, and people end up crossing the street where the most convenient place is. you lose some of the,
I don't know the answer. I
Yeah,
would say it's dangerous right now. I
Yeah.
can tell you that. Yeah.
I'm not sure that's necessarily the solution because of that concern, but I don't
And I
necessarily.
can also tell you as a flashing stop sign is not gonna deter people from, when they whip around, they're whipping around.
Look,
All right, a somewhat minor improvement, but it might help, would be put one of these, diamond shaped yellow signs, and go back to the FDR Drive just before the turn, and install that, with, that would, have, a couple of arrows, one that goes straight ahead that shows the route down to 23rd Street, and another one that shows the 90 degree geometry to make the right turn. You see where that, there is a sign there that says, stop sign with a little right arrow there. I think that's a bad sign, it doesn't really, fulfill the task that it has to do. It has to be noticed, understood, followed, and be there early enough in advance to affect people's behavior. It's kind of hidden, where that says road work ahead might be a better place to install a sign. You have this exit 20 miles an hour, you know, and that really doesn't give enough information. Really has to be a more substantial warning and a more informative warning.
So I think, I want to be mindful that we have another number of items on the agenda for tonight. I think we're all aligned that there's a lot of problems with this intersection and that we would like to see some improvements. Personally, I like Barack's suggestion that we come back with a resolution asking for a study. Perhaps we outline some of these suggestions in there, but ask DOT to basically like look at it and make changes as see fit. Are we aligned on that as the next step? Does anybody object to coming back with a resolution as such? Excellent. Alrighty. Does anybody want to write that resolution? Sorry, before
Oh,
I.
I just have a quick question as well. So looking at Google Maps, it looks like, this maybe sounds simple, but it looks like some of the trees might be obstructing the view of some of the sign. Is that indeed the case?
Yeah, service request.
If so, I mean, that does not
Trim
need
it.
to wait for a resolution.
Trim
like,
it.
To,
It's winter time, they have no leaves, so that's not a concern right now.
well, but it will be a concern in like 3 months' time.
Service request for that sounds like a good idea.
Sorry, just to make this comical, these are emails of mine from March 21st, 2019, with the reply saying, I received a letter from the DOT's Highway Design Unit today saying they have reviewed the request to move the crosswalk and have determined that is not feasible. In their view, the stop sign and additional safety markings on the ground are sufficient safety measures. We'll go on and on, so I have.
I think
Well, that's a good whereas.
Yeah.
We disagree.
To B's point about this raising things 3 times, this could be our second time. I really want to move on unless there's something important that anybody wants to bring up with this. B, do you?
Yeah, so I just wanted to be clarified. I support coming up with a resolution for studies and some suggestions, but we're also going to take the immediate action of dealing with the signage. That's going to be handled on a separate track, right?
As a service request, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to bring up this point, like the crosswalk on the 25th Street near First Avenue. I was wondering, could that be a raised crosswalk? Like,
I think it's a good idea to potentially ask for as one of the things in the resume. That would address the speed bump. Yeah, it's a good suggestion. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Next item on the agenda, 20th Street and Avenue C and East 18th Street and Avenue C. Again, this is a similar vein of the previous last month's resolution, also similar to what we're discussing here. Effectively, there's some concerns with safety and familiarity with this, the signage and treatment in this intersection, these intersections, and there's an ask to for DOT to study and improve them. Additionally,
Additional wayfinding signage too.
Yeah, additionally, there's that ask for improvements to signs at 18th Street and Avenue C around the ferry, and making it clear that you can cross at 18th Street to reach the ferry as opposed to, and not have to continue to 20th Street. Does that cover that, Laura?
Oh, I want to mention one other thing that came to my attention today. There's a timing on the crosswalk going from the Stuyvesant Cove Park, or getting into Stuyvesant Cove Park from the midpoint at Avenue, between the entrance and exit ramps for the FDR Drive. When you start from Stuyvesant Town and you cross, there seems to be enough time, or there should be enough time so that you could cross both roadways. Currently, the signal says 21 seconds, and then suddenly, miraculously, it loses 10 seconds in the middle and you're stuck there. People run across, they put themselves in danger of crossing the traffic, and so this is a service request more than anything. But if we wanted to indicate that you coordinate the crosswalk signals to, in addition to the wayfinding from Stuyvesant Town to the ferry landing in the park, that might be something worth an add here, and I propose it as an addendum.
So that would go on one of the.
Right there on the very top there. Okay, let's see, wayfinding signs. It's not posted at the intersection, and the crosswalk signals are not coordinated properly to travel from Stuyvesant Town over to Stuyvesant Cove Park.
Is this in addition to the resolution?
Yeah, and that wayfinding paragraph there, and the last one in the last whereas.
It's in addition to the end of that paragraph, right?
Right, you could add another one, and furthermore, another bullet point, yeah.
Okay.
Furthermore, comma, pedestrian crosswalk signals need to be coordinated so that pedestrians traveling from Stuyvesant Town to Stuyvesant Cove Park are not do not get stuck in the middle of crossing two intersections.
Do not get stuck.
Midway through two intersections. Yeah, need to be coordinated and timed.
Need to be coordinated and timed.
Right, and that's it.
All right.
And then in the resolved, something similar to, yeah, okay, then I guess you don't have to add anything specific because that's pretty general.
Yeah, that's sort of the main theme. It's basically we're asking for general review.
That's the only proposal. Ask if there are any objections or.
Well, any comments? Yeah. Just seems like this is like two different parts to it. One is the safety part and one's the signs part.
Yeah, they're two different things.
Two different things.
Two different things.
My understanding is the DOT and the ERC or the waterfront already looked at it and thought there's history behind the signs and they've already gone out. Okay, is that?
Oh, you're talking about the signs. I was focused on the signal. As far as the signal goes, I think there's a malfunctioning signal that may be very simple to fix. It may or may not be intentional the way it is right now. But as far as the signage goes, you're right. There was a walkthrough that we had with the electeds, and unfortunately, we were not able to follow up with Colleen, and it got dropped. And so it never did get properly studied.
Jenny?
So Larry, are these the signs that you were referring to in 2019?
Yeah.
Well, we have documentation that the DOT came back and said that they felt they were adequate.
No, but they never followed up in between.
In between when?
in between when we had the walkthrough and we had this discussion that when the DOT said it wasn't their responsibility at all, and we wasted that whole trip with all of those people.
Because we have documentation. that-
But I don't believe that it was actually studied. They just wrote that.
Sorry, what if like, you, Jason, and I did a walkthrough there or something like that? Sounds like they already studied it and said it was fine, or is?
But I don't think they studied it. I think they just wrote that they studied it.
I am concerned.
And we also asked them what the criteria was for, putting up some additional signage, and they never got back to us on that. Brendan, you know that, right?
Yeah.
I do have a concern about
It
asking
was a horrible loose end.
too much here and sort of complicating.
No, this is a very dangerous situation, and I'm not gonna let it go.
B. You got it.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute myself. For some
Okay.
reason, it doesn't want me to talk. I think having had a response from DOT, you really can question the integrity of their response. If we feel we want to do a separate item, going back to it and asking for an update now, but questioning a response that they sent or how they came to that response, don't think gives us any benefit. So
No, I'm sorry.
Wait, Larry,
I'm sorry.
if we
Okay.
still have the issue, and I think it's a separate issue from what we're dealing with here. If we're now questioning what we got back and the fact that it's not satisfying and we have these other issues, we should take that up as a separate issue and not really incorporate it in this.
Well, we've been trying to fix this since 2020. This seemed like a logical point to raise the issue because we're talking about safety at this intersection.
When did the DOT reply back?
December 2019.
2019.
Are the signage, is the signage?
But do you have the reply because it was wholly inadequate and non-responsive?
Well, it is documented in the minutes. I believe we probably do have them.
Is it a safety issue?
Yes.
I'm not dismissing it's incorrectly set up, but it is.
It's confusing. It's confusing and it's, people cross in the wrong place and, they risk their lives. They take a shortcut. Because there's no signage whatsoever. At this time, there were signs before, but they're all gone.
Would you be opposed to a walkthrough, maybe taking the
I'd
time?
love a walkthrough.
Taking the signage out like this, because to me, it doesn't seem related to safety. And then maybe you, Jason, and I do a walkthrough and agree on what we want. Do you object to that?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you would want to accomplish in a walkthrough.
Well, maybe if there was, if we jointly all agreed the same way, that would carry more power. It seems to be better for a separate resolution anyway, but.
Well, initially, we were treating it as a service issue. But because there was no proper response and it wasn't addressed, it's just said, well, we have our rules and we followed them. And they didn't say what their rules were.
So B, I see your hand, and Michael, I saw you want to raise a quick comment as well. Brendan, can you pull up the screen, the street view real quick, just so we can look at what the issue is with the
Yes.
with the signs?
Or the lack of
Let
them.
me go from, okay, this is 20th and C for the record.
Yeah, so if you
Yeah,
go.
and at 20th, there's a need for a sign that points you across. If you're on 20th Street, you're on Avenue C, go around the corner of 20th Street and Avenue C and get on, okay, now completely turn around 180 degrees. Okay, from here, there's no information about how to get to the ferry.
And
Nada.
the other signage issue now, if you go down towards
You have
18th.
the same issue over at 18th Street. But it's a much more complicated and dangerous
Yeah,
intersection.
keep going towards the curb there. Okay, now, flip around the view. Thank you. Okay, so the
Okay,
issue,
oh, there's our sign. It points you the wrong way.
so that's primarily the issue is
No,
that,
no, that's just that's a sub-issue. The main issue is go look east, look east, look east.
there's no signage
Okay,
here.
there's no signage whatsoever, and what people do, and go a little bit further north. A little bit further north. You see where that white vehicle is? Okay, just you see where there's a traffic barrier right there. At the close part to the park. People cross right here, take this shortcut. They don't cross the FDR service road. They don't cross at Avenue C and East 18th Street. They make a shortcut beeline right across here.
But are they doing
which
that because of the lack of a ferry sign? Or because?
Well, there
they-
are no signs, but it's, you know, like you say, this is where people would have a natural tendency to make their own line.
Right.
There's no direction that even attempts to send them in a safer way. And that's what I'm
So
recommending.
I'll admit I have not uncommonly cut across the as a jaywalk through here in that way that you're describing. And it's not because I'm not having nothing to do with the ferry and everything to do with the fact that I don't want to have to make the cross through one intersection and then again, and if it's clear, it's much easier to just cut across.
Now, it would make sense, and it cost a lot of money to correct this intersection. And so that where you see the left turn arrow, you would have a cut through so that the vehicles or at least, or you put the traffic light right in front of where that car is. So that they stop short of, they stop right there. And so that you could have a crosswalk a legitimate crosswalk that goes all the way across. And that would be the most elegant solution, but it was the most expensive.
Okay, thank you. Michael.
Well, that's right. I was thinking about like, you could have a raised crosswalk there. I think it needs to be a raised crosswalk because you have a place where.
You have buses crossing that. Are you sure you want to do that?
Well, I think that like,
These are the buses the over the road buses, big heavy ones.
yeah, I think that it would be a good idea to have, I think you could see a crosswalk there too. My only concern is, you know, you got the cars coming off the highway right over there. And I was wondering, you gotta have some way to slow them down. If it's the speed bump over there or whatever, to get them going a bit slower before they get to the crosswalk.
There's a traffic light there, importantly. Right here, coming off the highway.
That's fine.
Hold on, I want to go to B and then Cindy, I'll bring you.
So I would like to recommend, Larry, that we go back to the original language that we have and deal with this as a separate issue, whether you do a walkthrough. I'm listening to all the different recommendations and stuff. I think we have a good resolution. Don't commingle the issues and let's deal with this issue separately.
Okay, what is the? And B, what is the issue?
Larry, hold on, sorry.
What is the issue? The resolution is still.
I gotta ask you to hold on.
Okay.
Cindy, go ahead.
I just wondered, is the work for the ESCR finished? Is this the final configuration of this?
This was asked for ESGR and it wasn't
No,
included.
sorry.
It was left out.
The intersection.
I don't believe that there's any plans on this. No, much further north, not much further. 23rd Street has still work to do.
It was in the environmental impact stage.
Device for the
Whatever that structure is.
the structure, but it's on 20th Street, doesn't that? affect-
There's another one on 18th Street at that corner there.
I don't think it affects this intersection. It'll affect the,
You know, there is another one right here,
right on this median.
in Stuyvesant Town.
It's on the Stuyvesant Town median, but it's at 20th Street, so that's why.
No, there's another one at 18th Street, another one at 18th Street, right here.
But Brenda, can you?
And they were doing
go a little
excavations
south?
here.
Question, I'm just wondering if it's completely finished and, you know. at
You
the-
see that excavation there? That's connection to it.
But I don't think there's gonna be a structure there, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it'd be a pipe
a
underneath the
it's a
ground.
pipe, it's
Right.
A huge pipe, I forget what they call it.
Right, but that's all underground.
So I just wonder if this is the final configuration of this corner.
I see. I don't believe that
There were no
plans
proposals to make any changes.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any changes to the
Just a
roadway.
question, because we see lots of construction.
I think a lot of it's wrapped up for the most part, actually, and now, that actually might still be there. I might be wrong.
It's still there.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we have the resolution. Does anyone want to make any sort of?
Well, I'm
motion?
moving to amend it, just a few additional words. And so I think we got to vote on the amendment. If
What's,
somebody else-
well, you want to add really that?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, though, that
These
that
are-
amendment.
These are issues that we're asking the DOT to study.
Well,
In the meantime, we can have our walk.
But just to be clear, though, the resolution is including the ferry signage is more than just that amendment. We were already had in the resolution was already asking for DOT to review and improve the signage as it pertains to the ferry. So with like a lot of the discussion was that we should remove that, not just that this amendment, I don't think is really the primary concern that was discussed. I think the primary concern discussed was whether or not we should talk about the ferry signage at all in this resolution.
Well, this stuff about the avenue, see, this is what I was talking about. It would require the expensive change at that location. If they did that, they could put that additional crosswalk in. It's all related, all interrelated with each other. I don't think you should drop any part of it. They should consider all aspects.
Yeah, so we could vote, I don't think if we keep this resolution as it is with discussing the ferry, I don't think anybody specifically objects to that addition about the crosswalk. So I don't think there's any value in voting on that. We could vote on this resolution as it is, or we could vote on an amendment to the resolution, however anybody else would see fit. I don't think that particular, somebody should let me know if they disagree. I don't think that particular bullet point addition is contested or controversial. Michael?
How about an amendment for studying a change of the intersection of 25th Street and Avenue C to include, have a study for one-way traffic and for speed reduction measures on that street?
For 25th Street?
Yeah.
So we already, separately, we are planning on doing another resolution on 25th Street. So,
Next month.
yeah, for next month, we'll have that. I don't think I would add, I mean, theoretically, we could add that in here instead of passing another resolution, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would keep it specific to these intersections. But we definitely, next month, we will be reviewing a resolution on 25th Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing how the ferry wayfinding connects with the crosswalk timing. I'm not opposed to either, but I don't see how they necessarily connect unless we reconfigure this whole thing to be more broad, to include all these things. Instead of, I feel like it's a tack on.
It is, because I just noticed it today.
Well, when you said that, I mean, safety seems to be the framing device. That not necessarily if you're a pedestrian, but if you're a driver and you are searching for the ferry, accidents can occur. So I think that the framing of safety
Okay, can I give you context? 10 years. There were 10.
I'm gonna stop you, I'm sorry. Okay, so we need to move on,
It took 10 years to get that crosswalk. 10 years of fighting DOT to get them to recognize that people were gonna get killed there.
Do we have any motions on this? Otherwise, we're gonna move on the agenda and not address this and not vote on it at all. So,
Larry, you wanna add this?
I don't know where we are.
Okay, so here's where we
I don't know
are.
where
Here's where we are. There's an addition about the details about a crosswalk timing that I don't think anybody is. Are you concerned about that as an addition, perhaps?
Well, I don't.
I mean, if the crosswalk timing is something that's gonna hold up the resolution as written, I withdraw.
Okay, so let's withdraw that addition then.
Withdraw which addition?
That new bullet point that was added.
Okay.
Okay, if with the removal of that bullet point,
I'm okay with it.
we're okay with this resolution. I will.
Okay.
Okay.
But then
I
think
move
we can
it.
talk to them about the crossing and the service request, right? Because he said that it was like counting down improperly.
Yeah,
So I feel like we should address that first before we just add this in where I don't think it.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, but that, just to be clear, then this resolution will cover both
The ferry
the ferry signage and a request to study pedestrian safety improvements
Yeah.
at the intersection. We have the option of voting on that or we have currently no motion on the floor. So-
I move.
Okay,
I second.
okay, so we then are voting on this resolution, as written, and we have a second. So, any further comment before we vote? Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, when I call your name, please say whether you're in favor, oppose, abstain, or not entitled. Michael Cohen,
In favor.
E. Desmond,
Opposed?
Maya Donahue,
In favor.
Rock Friedman,
Opposed?
Jason Tromowitz,
I'm also opposed. I'm sorry, Larry.
Eric Goldberg,
In favor.
Anna Picior,
In favor.
Marion Rowe,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor.
Gabe Terzo,
Sorry, Larry, opposed.
and Jerry Weinstein.
In favor.
With 7 committee members in favor and 4 opposed, this resolution passes.
Okay, thank you. We will vote on the full board. Okay, moving on. Next we have, policy on, establishing a policy and procedures for reviewing parking regulation modification requests at entrances of residential buildings in Manhattan Community District 6. Okay, so, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, we had, Stuyvesant, SAC, not Stuyvesant, Stud in Place, SAC's organization came in to ask for removal of parking in front of two residential entrances in Stud in Place. There was some disagreement on we ultimately didn't get we had a resolution out of committee to support or not to object to the installation of no parking signs. There were some questions raised in committee about that we don't have a formal process and that it's unclear how other applicants would come to the committee to ask for this, and there was a feeling that there was a suggestion that it wasn't. There were some concerns around equity that to make sure it was clear that others would know how to make such similar requests. Eric, does that summarize that reasonably well? Okay. So ultimately didn't go through, it was voted on in full board, didn't pass full board. I think to address the concerns, I don't think anybody my understanding is there wasn't opposition to this particular no parking request. It was a concern around there not being a clear policy around how we address these. So I drafted up the resolution around basically giving guidelines to community groups such as SAC around what we would want to see and making it clear that they could come to us to make other groups and buildings and residents could come to us to make these requests, and it gave some suggestions for how we would evaluate that, and gave some details about what we would like them to present to us as a part of such a request, specifically basically demographic information, who they are, why they want this request, including photos if possible, as well as any sort of letters of support or petition from either the building owner or residents in the neighborhood, basically some documentation of establishing the demand for the change. And basically the ask is for them to email that to the board office. Brendan, if you could scroll down a little bit, basically just sort of spelled out, the evaluation criteria. So, once that was submitted, the committee would look at the need, safety, traffic impact, and ultimately decide in evaluating the request. One thing I want to off the bat change request that we amend from some feedback is there was a line. Brendan, can you scroll down a little bit there? I think Yeah. Unless it was already made. Sorry, can you scroll back up? Keep going. Yes, I'm going to remove the upon approval of the committee chairperson. Just basically we take out that first before the, yeah. And yeah, so basically my goal with this is to establish a clear process for groups and residents to ask for similar changes, fill out what they should give to us, how we would look at it, and to address the concerns that were brought up when we discussed this last. I open it up to questions and comments.
I remember from the last conversation concerns about like layers of bureaucracy and arbitrarily applying this to this and not other requests we may get in the street. I stand by my support for something like this because I do think these will be a finite request to be granted by DOT. And I think it's first come, first serve on a lot of the blocks. So I appreciate being a bit thoughtful about it, even more so than perhaps some other things, because I do think DOT won't be able to or won't be willing to, depending on the issue, afford it to every building that wants it on the same block. So I think it's good to have a fair and transparent process for it.
Thank you. Eric?
Just to add on that, I mean, and first off, thanks for going through this. I know it feels like it's belaboring, an issue, so thank you for that. But I think evaluating if there's language here that you think is appropriate to kind of like, when requests come in, we sort of evaluate the full block as sort of an entity to make like decisions, even if people didn't come to us on that block. Because I do think it's finite, and I think that is what was always sort of like unsettling to me. It's just like we have the capability to sort of look at 34th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, and one building came to us and just be like, okay, well, what makes sense in this block? So I don't know if there's like a clause to sort of like expand it. If you're done with it, then I'm in favor of this.
If you have a specific, I'm open to that, but if you have a specific,
I mean, I think the evaluation criteria, there would be something around like, you know, like about the context of the block, or like to evaluate any individual request within the context of the needs of that block.
Does the last bullet not address that? Community impact?
Changes all the community.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Okay, excellent. I asked and answered.
I'm gonna go to B, but then not really. Go ahead, B.
I was just gonna say, as a comment, I think the community impact deals with this. I actually support this. I think it makes it equitable. It gives what the guidelines are. It's kind of doing like when we have licensing and stuff of that nature. So I think it makes us more transparent, and I would support this, and I would actually move it to a vote if no one objects to it.
I'd like to give Larry a chance to comment, but
I really appreciate the effort that you've put into this, and that have the overview and the sensitivity as well. I'll second.
Okay. I think I was gonna make actually one more edit that I was realizing.
I'll withdraw that until you're
I don't think
done.
this is
I'll withdraw that
particularly
until you're
controversial.
done, okay.
I think we just wanted to remove the email address. Jesus was concerned with if there were some changes in the future that it might require us to revisit the resolution, just so that it's not written in stone.
I'll re-second.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, any last thoughts on the motion before we move? Okay, let's vote.
Wait, sorry, did you take out a line on you approving these things?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, so
See it again?
there was a line that the chair of the committee would review the application and determine if it should move forward to the committee. Basically, we took that out.
I see it again, no?
Any of that
The
paragraph?
chairperson of the CDC that will review applications will determine.
Maybe I removed the wrong thing.
In the wrong place? Maybe it's there twice?
Was it there twice?
Well, I think the implication is there twice, but you did remove the direct line of upon approval. I think, is this part when you're saying we will determine the request will be added, like just making sure all the boxes are checked?
I mean, effectively what I was trying to outline there was like, I mean, that's effectively how all committees work, is that the chair determines what is on the agenda. I appreciate that it sort of makes it sound like the chair is reviewing each application, which I wasn't. My intention wasn't to add an additional like layer of approval. It was just formalizing.
To me, it sounded like you were reviewing it to make sure that they submitted all the things requested.
In the other, in what we had removed, or this, what that says
No,
there?
with what is there now? But maybe that's just me and other people don't read it that way. Which I think is fine then, because there's no point in bringing an application if it's like missing something significant that we asked for, that we would need to make a determination. Like that would be what we're saying, the role of the chairperson to do.
Perhaps we more narrowly define that, review the application, determine.
Or does the office do that? Not putting more work on you. Anyway.
Determine completeness
Yeah.
as to whether it's ready to present.
Sure.
So how would it be worded?
Determine the.
Can I add something simple, I think, because you have it, but we'll review the applications for forwarding to the committee for action, or if we'll be putting on the agenda. You don't have to determine if the request will be added to the agenda. That's what makes it sound dictatorial.
Right, that's where I was trying to remove.
My edit suggestion is,
Let's put down Bs and then
So how's it worded again? We'll review applications.
You think I remember what I said?
For presentation to the board.
For presentation to the committee, or for inclusion on the committee's agenda.
I would simply suggest we have review circulate applications. We could cut even many more words.
The chairperson will circulate applications?
Yes.
Review and circulate.
For review.
Well, in theory, the board office generally forwards things, circulates things.
It's logistical, but this de-emphasizes your centrality and your authoritarianism in the process. It being the word of the year.
You alone can fix it.
I mean, there was.
I will defer. But I will not subsume.
I think it's fine as it is here, personally. Michael.
Well, the part about applicants will be invited to present the request at a public meeting in the CV6 Transportation Committee. I think that we should talk more about like that the request will be on the schedule, and then we invite the applicants to come in if they'd like to say something about it and talk about it.
Like you were saying, if the applicants are invited?
Sorry, I'm not following.
Are you
saying that there may be
proposing a
instances where we don't
change?
need
Are you
people?
proposing a change to the way it's written? Is there an issue with what's written here?
Yes, like I feel like it's a little unclear when you say present the request and be invited to present the request, like if the applicant doesn't come, or if a representative comes instead, will the request still be talked about?
Yeah, I suppose they could opt not to present and we could just review it on the basis of the submission of the application. I wouldn't recommend that, but I don't think we necessarily need to require a presentation on their part.
And this doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. I think you would pick
I think
the,
intentionally.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you would expect an applicant to attend, like with
yeah.
liquor license.
I would, exactly. I would expect them to, but I would assume that the committee would factor in the lack of a presentation into making.
Right.
So, Michael, do you think we've addressed your point, your issue?
I think
By
we
saying they're
have.
not required?
I think we have addressed it.
Okay, good.
Okay, we do have a resolution or a motion rather.
Okay, no, I was gonna make a motion.
Okay.
No, I forgot we already had a motion.
We do have a motion, so let's move forward on a vote unless there's a motion on the vote. No, okay, great.
Please do.
Brendan.
Okay, when I call your name, please say whether you're in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. Michael Cohen,
In favor.
B. Disman,
In favor?
Maya Donahue,
In favor?
Brock Friedman,
Favor.
Jason Frommowitz.
In favor.
Eric Goldberg. Eric Pisior, Anna Pisior, sorry.
In favor?
Miriam Rowe,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor.
Gabe Terzo,
In favor.
Jerry Weinstein.
In favor.
With all 11 committee members in favor, this resolution passes.
You are king.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna waive my report, quickly in old business, which we'll now move on to, if, assuming this passes full board, is the committee supportive of then now revisiting the SAC's application, with this now in place? Eric?
Sure, hey, then we can decide, right?
Yeah, I just wanna, just get a feel. Okay, so let's see how this goes through in full board, and then we'll look at potentially bringing them back in a future, future committee meeting. Okay, any other old or new business?
Right. Maybe it's just worth stating that, for Third Avenue, I know we were kind of promised it would come and fix Third Avenue. But DOT has gone north of the Upper East Side to present to CV11 to fix Third Avenue in East Harlem, which honestly, I think is a good thing. It's good for equity, and I think personally I support it, and hopefully come back to us afterwards. So just to give you a background of what's happening with Third Avenue.
All right.
Okay, this is the old business, what we were talking about before in terms of 25th Street and the traffic that goes from the FDR Drive. There was a time that we were focused on Baruch College and the closure of the street there, but the question of the traffic flow from the FDR Drive as a reliever for that terribly blocked up intersection, FDR and 23rd Street, so that vehicles might for one block or two blocks turn south in this very wide area of Third Avenue and work their way onto 23rd Street as a reliever. It's not possible now. And it wasn't really addressed then, and it's just trying to cast our net a little bit wider as we're looking at what to do with the traffic pattern on 25th Street and consider that it might have a utility.
Okay, thank you. All right, not seeing any other old or new business. Do we have much to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, seeing no objection, the meeting is adjourned at 9:03 PM. Thank you.